Welcome back to our wonderful webinar series, A New Design for Living. We're so delighted that you've chosen to tune in today. Our topic today is a new design for money. We recognize that people may be having some money issues in our world today, and we're so grateful that our principles and our teaching provides great wisdom to support people no matter what's going on in their financial life. And so we're happy to talk about money today, aren't we, Reverend Josh?
Yes, as much as we know as there's economic uncertainty out there, we can also know together the certainty that there is an abundant presence within us, that we are here to live abundant lives, and we're here to talk today about getting into those principles and how even in difficult times we can produce prosperity for ourselves first within and see it all around us. And we brought in a ringer today, Michelle.
Yeah.
We're so grateful to have Dr. Roger Teel with us today. So good to see you, Roger.
Thank you.
And you know, in your ministry, you've touched so many different lives, countless numbers of lives, with amazing prosperity principles. And you know, I think that's the first thing we'd want to connect with you about today, is for those of us who might be struggling, those of us who may be facing uncertainty, those of us who may be seeing our the money in our bank account not where we want it to be. You know, where do we start to start getting that flow of prosperity going in our lives again?
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, and thanks for having me. And as I say, anytime anybody asks, I think you two are doing a phenomenal job leading Beloved Mile High to new heights. And thank you, because it's not an easy job. So thank you for your heart and your love. And you know, as you say, Josh, this whole thing about money and abundance takes us to the core of our principles. You know, I mean, at a time like this, it's really our opportunity to put down deeper roots and not just talk about these things, but really integrate and strive to live them more fully. Because if our teaching is, and I know you know it is, a teaching of the oneness of all life, and that we live in the midst of the infinite Holy One, and that one is fully present in its entirety everywhere. So that right where I am, right where you are, right where anybody watching this is the full intelligence and potential, light and love of the ultimate and the infinite. That to me is the mystic key of the ages. And so our abundance flows right out of that. I mean, the abundance teaching flows right out of that realization that we're in that presence now, but the place we usually live is up here. We live in our belief systems, we live in our concepts and our database. There's a greater reality. So that's what this great teaching does, as you know. It takes us to the deeper reality of things so that we can draw from that and not just keep perpetuating the limits of our former concepts, because it is done unto us as we believe and as we live and as we are. So it is an opportunity for us to explore, what do I really know? And can I know what I've been told, what the enlightened masters of the ages have told us, what the science of mind and spirit so beautifully re-articulates? Can I go to a deeper level of integration here? Mm-hmm. And to me, that's where it starts, because as we know that we're living in that presence more and more and more, then we can start to shift out of the erroneous, hollow thinking that plagues us so much. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned money, of course, and so many people have hang-ups about money. Yes. But it was a big shift point for me when I read in Eric Butterworth's book, Spiritual Economics, Money is God in Action. Mm-hmm. Money is an avenue by which the intelligence and the creativity of the one life works through us. And so we use this money stuff, which at one level is just paper and coins, although those are going away, it seems. But it's numbers, and there's the quantity element. We go to the quality of it. What is money? But it's an instrument by which we express our creativity, that we connect with others, we form associations and commerce and this thing called the economy. But that's all essentially the spiritual life working through us and expressing through us. So I love it that people get into this teaching and the wonderful consciousness of Mile High Church, and they get to debunk a lot of old misconceptions and fearful stuff about money. The old things like money is filthy lucre, and some of the stuff that we're told. What do you think? Money grows on trees, and things like that. And a lot of people are wounded around money, and so this is a great opportunity to get back to principle, and that is that money is an avenue by which my spiritual life and creativity expresses. And I'm in this infinite sea of potential and life and spirit, and I can open to that and express more of the creativity that is within me. And money then is this opportunity, this instrument, this good thing that allows me to work with others and to prosper. And so money is a good thing, and it's not. And I think that's what I love about our spirituality. Is some spiritual traditions make money wrong. Of course, they want them to give a lot of money to those traditions or those organizations, but they make it wrong. Here we say, how could something that's an instrument of creative life be wrong? Now, our relationship can be wrong. Our motivations, our uses of it can be off course. But in its essence, it's good stuff. So I would suggest that part of our job is to go beyond the quantity of money to the quality of money. And really get into that sense that money is God in action. Through me, through my creativity, through my consciousness, through my linkage with other individuals as we generate life and energy. And there's no limitation to that. And I think that's the other thing is to get over this idea that there's a limited resource of that. It's something we can create of as much as we want, and we're doing a lot of that of late, creating a lot of that. But always, for me, I try to remind myself, it begins with an idea. And then abundance flows out of ideas. And there's no shortage of ideas. And if I can just seize upon a new idea, then that opens up a flow. It opens up, especially if it's something people can use or is needed in the world. I'm remembering the time in Jesus' ministry where the tax collector came around and said, it's time for y'all to pay your taxes. And so the disciples rush over to Jesus and say, hey, big guy, we got to pay the taxes, and we give it all away. We don't have anything stored up to pay the taxes. And Jesus said, well, just go over to the lake over there and throw your line in and catch a fish and look in the fish's mouth. And I've always thought the disciples probably went away with a lot of Jesus' instructions thinking that he'd been in the sun a little too long, because they're thinking, we got to pay the taxes and he wants us to go fishing. But, they went and they did what he said, and they caught a fish and opened its mouth, and there was a gold coin, and they paid their taxes. Now, we really need to get into the metaphor of that, the teaching of that parable, and that is, the fish in the Bible is a symbol of a big idea, a God idea, a great idea. And there's gold in every great idea. And sometimes in a pandemic like this, in a downturn, it's time to ask some deeper questions, some new questions, and look in the mouth of a big idea. So the goal is to find an idea that's powerful, not to get money. Money is a result of tapping into this superabundance of intelligence and ideas and bringing a creative idea forth. And sometimes we stay in the security of our old ideas and our old strategies and our old approaches. Sometimes it takes something like we're going through to vault us into newness, to challenge us to quest, beyond what we know, to what we don't know, to that greater dimension of possibility, and let our abundance flow forth from becoming still and asking deep questions and catching a new vision and a new idea, and then putting that to work in the service of life And noticing then that ideas like that produce great abundance. Abundance of needs met, abundance of connections, and money. And then that money can be put to good use. So I want to pause here and let you get a word in edgewise, which it's just not easy with me. I understand that.
You've said so much and great wisdom, and I know that as we've talked about these principles, as people are facing the challenges that they're facing in this pandemic, I really hear what you're saying about the high spiritual ideas, the big ideas, and then that being stuck in the minutia. And what I sense is that a lot of people who are struggling with money are stuck in their fear.
Yes.
And it's difficult for them to reach out of that fear and grasp a spiritual solution. So what might you say to people if they're really caught up in their fear right now, really stuck? How do they get out of that?
I think we must always embrace our fears and not make ourselves wrong for them. And understand that it's just an energy within us, born of a certain conclusion that we're at risk, that we're not being supplied, not being supported. And I think, first of all, to have compassion and understand that fear is an ongoing natural part of being a human being. And anytime things shift as they have now, anytime there are losses, anytime we're ever catapulted out of a comfort zone, there's fear. Anytime we seize upon a new dream, there's often fear. Like, oh my gosh, I'm out on the skinny branches now. Or where will the resources and the people come along to help me manifest this dream? So fear is a natural thing. And I think it's, first of all, important just to acknowledge it, but then be about the business of transmuting it. And the greatest place to do that is in our hearts. Because fear usually has us in our heads and our emotional center. But the power to shift out of the fear, or at least to shift out of the paralysis of fear, is our hearts. Is go to our hearts and breathe in and out of the heart. Relax into the heart, surrender into the heart. And let that energy well up there, because the heart is the portal to oneness. It's the portal to our God connection. And it says perfect love casts out fear. And so I go to the heart and I get anchored in the heart. And I feel something bigger than the fear. It doesn't necessarily always evaporate the fear, but I go to a bigger space than the fear. And how many times have I had to go ahead and act in the face of the fear? So it's not like the fear has to go away. It's I got to grow beyond it. And it may still be there. So I do the thing anyway. I do it afraid, even if I have to. But I'm motivated by the passion and the courage that can only come from the heart. And so I would say that have compassion for yourself, and yet challenge yourself too. Can I connect into that heart space? And can I be one who's got fear, but I am not the fear? I'm feeling fear, and I am a spiritual being on a creative mission here. And I'm going to go for it. And how many times I've had the experience of fear of really evaporating when I'm in action, when I'm actually doing the thing that I used to be afraid of. Like when I was a kid, and I think I was 7, and all the kids at the pool were jumping off the high dive. And I barely was swimming, and I wasn't about to jump off the high dive. No darn way. I didn't want to die that young. And so I made all sorts of excuses. I would get sick before the end of the swimming period. I was in a day camp, and or I'd go volunteer to help the little kids in the pool, But finally, my buddies caught on, and they were making fun of me, and said, "You're afraid. You're afraid." And I finally, one day, I decided I'm going to have to do it. So I hugged my parents extra hard, thinking, well, this will be the last. And I climbed up and down several times. Finally got up on that board, and it was wiggling, that's salt in a wound right there, And so I actually was afraid to stand up, and I actually scooted along it. They have that rough stuff there, and so here I am scratching myself.
Yeah.
in tender places as I'm scooting along on this thing. And finally, I get to the end, and it's moving like that, and I stand up, and then I thought, I'm not going to do it, and I was going to turn around, but then I lost my balance, and I fell off of the thing, and it was the most ugly contortion of arms and legs and screaming, and I think I hit it flat on my stomach. I heard laughing from out there, but in that moment that I hit that water was sinking, fear was gone. So it was my myth that I got to beat there, and I try to remember that personal story a lot in my life, because we all have high dives, and our whole culture, I think, is on a shaky high dive right now. And I know so are many of you, and my heart is with you. And lean into this teaching and use it. Use it as an opportunity to go deeper. And remember that you're a part of a superabundance. There is no limitation. The limitation is in us, in our concepts, in how we let fear paralyze us, in thinking that is in an old paradigm, and we need to burst the chains, and also in hiding out. And it's interesting, we're in this time, and you'd think people would take more risks at a time like this, but actually the risking is going way down. And I think that it's time to take a risk on your dream. I mean, if you've lost your job, what have you got to lose? By asking, did I really want to do that? Was I in my passion? And to ask, am I living the life I really love? Or was I coasting along and, getting the checks and everything, but in a way, sabotaging my dream or denying my real dream in my life? What a great opportunity to say, now it's time for wholesale opportunity for me.
Right.
How do I want to redo my life? But my inner lifestyle is the first place to start. And work with that.
Right.
I can't even remember the question you asked me, but
Very good.
It was about fear, and one of the things I got
Yes.
about what you said, Roger, was in a sense that fear can kind of be a sign of a defense mechanism against that greater idea that we're wanting to step into. And one of the essential things I've gotten out of things that you've taught is that we're not just here to live, but we're here to live abundantly. And so getting back to this idea of allowing our finances to exist in a bigger idea, for so many of us, money, perhaps more so than any other thing, we use to define our identity. When my bank account isn't where I want it to be, sometimes I look at that and I think, I'm broke. I'm broken. What a terrible feeling to have that level of self-worth tied to how much is in my bank account. And yet what I'm hearing you say is to not see money as our own identity, but as part of the divine, as an expression of divinity. And so I'm just wondering if there are any strategies that you would have of how we can move from maybe seeing money as a reflection of our low self-esteem to seeing it as a reflection of that tranquility of heart that you spoke about earlier.
Well, you said a lot there too, which I like. And one thing I want to hit on before I get to that is, there are certain kinds of fears. If we get really honest, I mean, right now a lot of folks are afraid for their future. But, hanging out inside that fear is avoiding a bigger fear, and that is to risk my greatness. And so many people are afraid of risking their greatness in good times and in lean times. And that because it means change. It means risk. It means vulnerability. And sometimes we've got to go from hiding out in a lesser fear and say, I'm going to lean into the fear of living a big life, of going after a big idea, of making significant change inwardly and outwardly in my life. So I got that from what you said, and I would ask us to file that away. And I think another thing we can do more in reference to your question is, first of all, we've got to start blessing what we have now. And look at how our impoverishment, our poverty consciousness labels our own life as not enough. And so you see, that's the context we bring is, I'm not enough, I don't have enough. And I've recently been teaching a class on discerning the miracles within the miracle of Jesus dividing the loaves and fishes. And, what happened was the people followed him to a place, and he gathered them around and he taught them after he healed some folks. And then it got to be late, and the disciples came to him and said, hey, it's late. What are we going to, how are people going to eat? I think all the McDonald's are closed now. And he said, let's send them into the villages so that they can get food. And Jesus said, well, no, what do we have? And they said, oh, we only have a couple of fish and some loaves of bread. And he said, bring them to me. And they said, wait a minute, but we only have a couple of these loaves and some fish. And he said, bring them to me. And he took them and he held them up to lift up the vision of them symbolically. And then he blessed them. And then he broke and he gave them to the disciples, and then they to the people. And of course, most people know the story. Everybody was fed, and they had 12 baskets left over. And again, a metaphor. And to me, his consciousness was such that he didn't look at what was given, supposedly in one of the accounts. And by the way, this is one of the few incidents in his life that was recorded in all of the Gospels. And one of the accounts had a child, a little boy, giving him the food. But and it's the childlike love of giving in us that says, hey, here, have this, teacher. But he didn't see it as only. He lifted up and said, look at this. This is God's stuff. This is substance. This is evidence of the divine. And then he blessed it, which in the root word of blessing means to confer prosperity upon. He blessed it, and then he went into action. He broke it and started things moving. There's so much in that.
Yeah.
We tend to get caught up in quantification, and we feel like if there's not a certain amount, we're not prosperous. And the lesson of that teacher is shift, bless what is, and don't see it as a limitation, because it's evidence of the greater life that you're a part of right now. Don't think that this is all. This is the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. Bless it, and lift your vision of this, and then go into action. And he went into action, and he gave, and then other people gave. I have a theory that people had already had food with them. They wouldn't travel out into the desert without supplies of some sort. But the little child gave, and he blessed it and started giving, and everybody else started giving. And there's more than enough. So as we look at this fear and look at what's going on, it's an opportunity to shift our perspective in our life. Now, this is not just a philosophical thing. It's like a deep, heartfelt shift. It's saying, I'm going to step out of holding myself in a sense of impoverishment or less than, or what Eric Butterworth calls onlyness. I only have this. I only have that. And the wisdom of that parable is celebrate what is. And then do what you can where you are with what you have. In other words, we move into action, utilizing that which we have, not making it wrong, not holding it in diminishment and not enoughness, and do what you have. I think the biggest key to abundance right now is to have a new vision. What's my dream now? And then to start doing whatever we can, day by day, even if it's little stuff. Do what you can where you are with what you have. And I think the biggest thing that always needs to be in action is our giving. Because we really haven't anchored the kind of prosperity consciousness that will attract greater good to us, attract greater ideas within us. We're not in integrity with that truth if we're afraid to or reluctant to give. And so always in high-level prosperity teachings, there comes the point where we look at the fear we have of giving, and that the old idea that giving depletes me. Now, the spiritual truth of it is that giving opens up the flow for me. It puts me in the current. That's why they call it currency. It puts me in the flow, and it starts this energy flow. Jesus gave that food. It started an energy flow and a phenomenon. And so it's important to give. And of all that we are and of our money, give of our time and our love and our encouragement, our volunteer efforts. Be giving, and don't stop with just that. If you'd like to see your finances grow, you've got to get that flow going too. And I think that's the last bastion of fear for a lot of folks is I'll give everything, but not that because I don't have enough. But then we're caught in this catch-22. The having of more means we have to flow, but we say, no, I'll give when I get. In the 43 years I was in this ministry in the form you're in it now, I still feel like I'm a minister and I'm doing it in a different way now, but I absolutely knew that when somebody said, I'll give when I have or when I get, I knew that wasn't true because I knew they wouldn't. Because I knew they were still caught up in an old consciousness. They were vibrating at a lesser frequency. So getting doesn't change that frequency. It's when I step out on faith, a wise faith, faith of realizing that I'm a part of an infinite abundance. And it wants to express and flow by means of me. And I'm giving because I am blessing what I have and I want to impart of that. And I want to love my giving. Never give out of obligation. Never give to manipulate with strings attached. Give because it's our nature to give. We're part of the great giver of all life. Give because of that, and give consistently, because who wants haphazard return or haphazard blessings? And just get used to this idea. My life is an open flow. It's not a clogged up, fearful cesspool of anything. I want my life to be a flow. I want my life to be a flow. So it's also time then to start giving. And I think another way we can give right now, not only getting our money at whatever level one can, get it flowing, but give others encouragement. I know a lot of folks are down and looking for encouragement. I have often found that my mood is lifted when I help somebody, when I talk to somebody. So another thing you can give is call somebody who's afraid, and rather than swimming around in it with them or joining in a pity party about it, say, hey, what can we know together? Here's what I want. Here's what I want to know. And let's be prayer partners together on this. Let's not stay stuck in this. Let's first of all shift our consciousness about what our life is now and see ourselves as blessed more than our fear would admit. We are fully blessed. And let's start sharing, and let's shift our vibration, shift our consciousness. Let's open up to new ideas, and let's start a new vibrant energy going. That's how we can get abundance flowing in our lives.
Yeah. I think you're pointing to something that I think goes with us, and we did a webinar on work, as you know, and an important aspect of this whole subject to me is that people get so proud when they're having money issues, get so proud when they're in this fear, get so proud and unwilling to not only give, as you're talking so powerfully about, but to be receivers of help and support and ideas and prayers. And there's a tendency when we're in that fear and thinking something's wrong with us to kind of cocoon inside, to feel ashamed and that sort of thing. And you've given us great words for and pointed to amazing principles that we teach here about receiving the good that God is in our mind and through our heart and getting that flow going. What would you say about the value of being a good receiver when it comes to being abundant?
Oh yeah, it's a part of the same cycle. I sense that giving and receiving are one thing.
Yes.
We impart and we receive. The vacuum brings it back, and we keep imparting more, which is the secret to it. But I do think that sometimes we have money issues and giving issues, but we also do have receiving issues, like we're selfish or egotistical, or that we are in receiving, we're taking on this huge burden. And now we have to reciprocate in like measure or more. And so we have a lot of hang-ups. But I think you mentioned, Reverend Josh, that sometimes this whole prosperity dimension is a reflection of our self-worth. And I invite us to value ourselves enough to both give and receive. For a long time, I had a hard time, in my early years, up to about 32, I really had a hard time receiving love. Oh, I'd give it, but I was afraid to receive it. Those are too many intimacy issues, and I've used this story for a long time, and I won't go over the story, but it was a great wounding in that area that caused me to open up my heart. And then I realized that I had all this love energy to give away and to receive. And so then receiving love wasn't a big deal anymore because I'd finally opened my heart. So, receiving, it's a big deal. A good exercise in this is, sometimes, by the way, we just have to do some new things and get comfortable with them because we're really shifting years old habits. Receive joyfully and watch your language around, oh, you shouldn't have. Well, don't demean the giver. If they wanted to, then they should have. So, using phrases like, oh, you shouldn't have. Oh, that's too much, or, some of those things. Practice joyfully receiving, and when and if appropriate, if you really want to grow, ask for more. That'll really stretch that paradigm of receiving. Can I even ask for more and know that I'm worthy for that? And I'm not being gluttonous or taking from somebody else. I know another idea that's out there a lot is that if I prosper or receive a lot, I'm depriving others. And yet, if you've got a full-orbed, healthy abundance consciousness, the more you're receiving, the more you are giving. I, for 45 years, have been a tither. And it's one of Erica and my most cherished activities. We love to tithe, and that's giving the 10% off the top. And for us, it's gotten so easy. The 90% goes further than the former 100, and it keeps us in the flow. And over our many years, my years of doing it in our whole marriage, we've seen our life continue to grow and grow and grow. Now, there were fluctuations along the line, but the overall ramping up, I believe, was because we stayed passionately and lovingly in the flow. And there was no obligation in that. Although, I will say that initially, when I started, I felt obliged.
Sure.
Because I was in your former ministry. When I was in my last year as a ministerial student, I got a prized internship with Dodie Derenforth, who was the minister of the Seal Beach Church. Everybody wanted to be her intern. And she chose me. And I had 6 months to work with her. And when I got there, she gave me several projects. But she was really kind of frustrated because they'd lost their lease on a movie theater where they were holding services. They had no property of their own, although it was a nice, thriving ministry. And they went from meeting halls to move. And she was just, I'm so sick of it. I want our own place. And she said, hey, you're new to town. You don't know. So look around. You've got fresh eyes. And I needed to get to know the place, so I drove around. And I saw this for sale sign on a small-looking factory or industrial building. And then also right next door was a 2-story little office building. And I thought, well, I wonder. And so I went back to their board president, and he looked into it. And they got all excited about renovating this. Well, it was a Bernstein salad dressing factory. And then they bought the little office building for their offices and some classrooms and youth stuff. And that's the ministry you were serving there. And so they launched this big campaign, a fundraising campaign. And Dodie came to me and said, thank you for seeing this, and we're so excited. What are you going to do in support of the campaign? And I said, Dodie, geez. Dodie, I'm in my 6th year of college. I don't think I could be more broke. And, playing banjo 3 or 4 nights a week, keeps me alive, but, it's not the greatest thing. She said, wait a minute. She said, you can always do something. And she then said, you're not going to be able to go into this ministry in integrity unless you're willing to start putting this stuff to work now. And I went away from that and I thought, oh, geez. And so I'd made the decision to tithe starting then. And it wasn't much because I wasn't receiving much, but I took the 10th, I put it out there, and my life has taken off. I've never stopped from that time. So it started with obligation, but it wasn't really obligation. It was like I was called to test this. And like it says in the Bible, prove me now. If I won't fill up the coffers with more than you can receive. So sometimes we have to prove it to ourselves and step out. And I was afraid to do it. But that's a theme in this thing. Sometimes you have to do it afraid. You have to go ahead with your fear and not be paralyzed by it, but be bigger than it and go for it. And my life has grown.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Roger, for being with us today. And
nothing you guys
bringing
couldn't
your
have said just as
wisdom.
well. But thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. What a joy. Well, recently I got to interview a wonderful Mile Higher, one of our very own, but some of you may have seen him on Channel 9 News at some point, and he currently is working for the city of Westminster. He's very active in the world, very energetic guy, and I was so grateful to get a chance to speak with him. I'm speaking of our own Gregg Moss. Here's that interview now.
We're so grateful that you've chosen to be with us today. And I know you have a lot to say to our viewers about the opportunities that might be available to them and reaching for opportunity in this time of potential challenge in their lives. So,
well,
please,
Dr. Michelle, namaste to you and to everyone. I so miss our Mile High family being able to see everyone in person on a Sunday, but I feel the spiritual gathering on online, of course, and it's just such an honor to be able to be here with you and be a part of this special program. So I just wanted to say thank you, how grateful I am for that. And yes, I would tell you in my role as someone who is working as head of innovation and engagement in a municipality here along the Front Range, the city of Westminster, I have a unique position and a unique kind of spot to watch what's unfolding right now. And what I'm seeing unfolding are some great opportunities. There are great challenges, but as we all know from history and from what's been written in the many great works, and from the great way shower and teacher, that from great challenges and some of the most challenging parts of our life and our time have come amazing opportunities. And what I am seeing people start to embrace, understand, is that it is time to lean into that. It is time to let the fear go and understand that it is what it is. And I don't mean that by any negative sort. That's been a little politicized of late. But it is something that we have to understand we have no control of right now, and that's okay. What we do have control of, though, is being open at the top to these amazing possibilities and opportunities. And if you can see it, you will, I have no doubt, be able to embrace some great things unfolding. I really do believe that, and I'm seeing it.
I am too, and I think that's so wise. And do you have any ideas or tips for people about ways to really expand that seeing? Because sometimes we get so stuck in our little perceptions of life, whether it's a challenging time or not. That's one of the greatest challenges of being human, is we get stuck in our mindset. So how do you expand beyond your mindsets and see the opportunities?
Well, and following our great friend and our great teacher at Mile High, Dr. Roger, I do have what I call the AAA of looking at this. So I do have a little acronym here.
Oh, good. I love it. Yay.
I know. And I just popped in my head. So Roger would be proud, I think.
Yes.
But it starts for me in assessing, the assessment of where I am personally in my spiritual life, in my personal life, in my professional life, and what's all going around me. And when I say assessing, that's really taking a hard look at what's going on and being real about it. And not sugarcoating it and saying, oh, everything, all is well. And, there's a place for that. But you know me, I'm sort of like, let's get real here, people. This is what's going on. And after you assess that, then taking that accountability for what this means and what's going on around you. And I really resonated with your talk, by the way, on Sunday, as you talked about that. But it is so true that you know where you are in all sectors of your life. You now have to be accountable for that because no one else is going to do it for you, right? And from that, you come up with a plan and take action to move forward. I think too often, sometimes I get to stuck in the point of the being accountable. Okay, but then there's that little action step, right? With all these things that we need to do, and don't let that be overwhelming. Start moving. The Kaizen approach is what I love. Is it's that 1% improvement every day, and in 100 days you're going to get there, right? But I really do believe that if you can assess where you are, have the accountability for the place you are in, and then take some action, you've got a great opportunity to move into some positive things. It's not going to be easy. This is a challenging time. We're talking from an economic standpoint. As you know, I'm a geek and I kind of like crunch these numbers. They can be scary numbers. They can be scary when you see the headlines. And at the same time, understand that you can move beyond that. I really do believe that.
That's beautiful. I believe that too, and I love your enthusiasm about it. And we talked a little bit in our webinar about prideful stuckness, the inability and the unwillingness to be helped. And I just really feel like in life in general, but especially in times when we feel challenged, especially if we're challenged with money, sometimes people have shame issues about that. And we talked about it, they let it erode their self-esteem. And so how do you feel about people reaching out for help? I mean, how can we encourage people to continue to be willing to be helped and get beyond their pride in these economic times?
Well, I think the first thing that I am seeing and that I have experienced in this opportunity, in this world we're living in right now, is that there are so many people going through similar things that you are going through. This is not an isolated incident. This is long, this is deep, it is wide, it is broad. It is affecting more people than you think. Whether it be from the illness itself and the ramifications and experience of that, or from losing a job or losing a business or losing friends or family, it is widespread. So you're not alone. That's number one, to know that you're not alone. And even though you are probably experiencing something very individual and it is impacting you in a very individual way, that's okay. It's okay to hurt and to feel grief and to feel loss. So understand that a lot of people are going through what you're going through. You've got your own individual stuff happening, and you've got to deal with that and embrace it and surround it. And then going back to what I just said, you got to take action and move beyond that. Because if you get stuck in this, which I will be honest with you, in the first days of this whole thing, as you know, I'm a very social person. I feed off people's energy. And I was stuck up in my newly created home office in my little pity pot thinking, oh, I'm going to lose my job. Our revenues are down $30 million plus. How can I ever keep my job? And I can't bounce ideas off of people. But once you take the action, move forward and realize there are people out there who will love to help you in this time. There's you. There's Reverend Josh. There are so many support systems at Mile High. There's so many support systems in the nonprofit community. There are lots of programs out there that municipalities, cities, states, the government is stepping in to help support a little bit. It will not do you much good to get stuck in the fact, well, I've never needed help before, I shouldn't ask for help now. Or I've never needed help before, I don't know how to ask for help. The first step in asking for help is just opening your mouth and saying, I need some help. And I've seen it just over and over. People are so eager to open up their heart and their arms to assist you. And there are a lot of programs out there that can do that.
There are.
Whether it be financial assistance, temporary or more long-term, access it and access it now. Whether it be your bank, whether it be your credit card company, whether it be your mortgage company, reach out, talk to them. They may be able to help you. And I think in more cases than not, you'll find that they are also very supportive if you're going through that challenge. If there's opportunities to start a new business, you've got this crazy idea and you think, well, you can never start a business during a pandemic. I am seeing it happen. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Small business development centers throughout the state of Colorado offer free counseling and free support with people who have actually owned their own business who will help you get there. If you have a business that's struggling, the SBDCs, they'll do the same thing. There are grants for businesses. We can't even give away all the money that we have right now to our small business community. I find that shocking. But it's what you just said, people get stuck. Oh, I don't know if I'm worthy, and I'm not that bad off, or I don't know if I need that help. There's somebody, stop that. Go for it.
I love it. That's
I
great.
know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, lastly, I want to invite your wisdom to, let's talk to people who maybe they're doing okay right now financially. They haven't lost their job. They're not struggling,
Yep.
but they're spending time obsessing about what ifs. They're obsessing about what if the economy tanks? What if my retirement funds tank? What advice and input would you give the what ifers?
So what? So what? That's my philosophy. The way I got sort of unstuck was, so what? What if that does happen? I can do all these things that I know in my heart and I have been taught for many years through great philosophy called Science of Mind. And how much energy am I spending worrying about something that I have no control over? Again, I go back to that sort of it is what it is, and you don't have control over this virus. You just don't. There are preventative things you can do. There are certainly smart ways to live your life and move forward in interacting with people. But at the end of the day, we've just got to roll with the flow and understand that it's going to be this way for some time, and learn from that. So the way I've gotten unstuck is to say, so what? I'm open, and then to help people. Get engaged in helping people. I will tell you, it has lifted my heart and my spirit. I was actually, we weren't able to hire our seasonal lawnmowers. So I've been out there on my day off volunteering to mow our open space. I'm also helping pick up, do a front porch food drive every Saturday. So I'm helping pick up food, and I'm helping distribute food. It has lifted my heart to engage that kind of thing. And we all know the law of circulation. So I will just tell you, for me, I would invite you to try that because it's really, really helped. And there are so many avenues and on-ramps for you to engage that way right now.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Gregg. You're so wise. You're so energizing, and it's just lovely to have you with us. So we appreciate all of your support, the way you've always supported our Mile High community and show up for us as well as the community at large. You are a great man, and I'm so grateful for you.
Well, I am equally as grateful. I love you. I can't wait to give you a big hug.
Me too. I love
Virtual
you
hugs.
too. Yay. Thanks,
Okay.
Gregg.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to Gregg Moss and Dr. Michelle for that wonderful conversation. We just want to wrap things up with some closing thoughts. Want to hear some more from you, Dr. Michelle, as well. And I just want to say, Roger, an underlining thing I heard in what you were saying as well is don't compare yourself to other people, both in the good and the bad. If we get caught up saying that person has more abundance than I do, we wind up pushing ourselves down. And if we worry too much that we're thriving and that's hurting other people who are around us, that can hurt them as well. One of the things I'm hearing is, and I have heard you define it as well in the past, as no private good. This idea that when we're approaching our own abundance and when we're in that giving flow, supporting people around us, that it doesn't do anything but uplift the people around us as well.
Indeed. And I tell you, the place to channel your new increased giving flow, if you've really caught this message and are willing to move into the giving flow on a consistent basis, is Mile High Church. I know that this spiritual center is unparalleled, and it requires all of our continued love and dedication. But what a beautiful thing also in one's giving. I mean, you don't have to restrict your giving just to Mile High, but make sure Mile High is very strong in this, because it is a center of light. And the very ideas you're using to shift your consciousness are the very things that Josh and Michelle and their wonderful team are bringing into the world. So what a beautiful thing that our giving is actually creating more of this light of inspiration and tools for people out there in the world to access. So let's keep this Mile High strong in our giving, and that'll bless us I promise you.
Thanks again, Dr. Roger.
You're welcome. You're
As
welcome.
we close
My
out,
joy.
thank you. As we close out this time together, I invite us just to take a moment, and wherever you are as you're watching this webinar, just take a deep breath with us and just feel the abundance. Feel the flow of the divine that is just overflowing right now through all of life, and just breathe into it. No matter what the conditions are, whether you've been concerned for yourself, concerned for your loved ones, concerned for your future, just let that all go and just join us for a moment of just being in the flow, feeling the divine, abundant nature of life, just breathing through each one of us right now. And allow us to take a moment to claim ourselves in the beautiful energy of more than enoughness, the beautiful energy of abundance, of life, of good, knowing that all of this is the source that God is as it flows through our lives. And that as we open to it and as we allow it to flow in our mind, in our hearts, in our awareness, that it flows out into our lives, and our lives just get bigger and bigger and bigger, more abundant every single day. And so with every breath as we go forward, we are walking and living in that wonderful, abundant nature. I accept this for each one of us right now, and I'm so grateful for this time that we've had together. Thanks again for tuning in, and bless you.